Welcome to part 3 of our video series detailing how to construct the Ender 3 Pro 3D printer. For this section, you will need to place the tri-wheeled mechanism with the motor on the left strut, and the other tri-wheeled mechanism on the right strut. They both need adjusting so that they run smoothly with no play, as seen in part 1 of our video series. If you need to go back and watch that section to get it perfect, do so now. Each side should fall smoothly down the vertical strut, as seen here. Remove both mechanisms from their struts and lay out the pieces required for the belt sub-assembly as shown. Then take the motor mechanism and attach the brass filament feeder with the appropriate spanner. Nip it so it is secure. Take the horizontal strut and locate the holes as shown. The holes which are closest to the end should be on your left, with the holes down the strut on the right. Rotate it so that they face away from you, then place the belt teeth down in the groove. Then, take the motor mechanism and on the right hand side of the strut, feed the belt through the end and loop it around the gear in the motor. Take the 2 bolts required and insert them into the holes on the tri-wheeled plate. Now carefully locate the bolts into their holes, whilst feeding the strut towards the motor. It can be easy to knock them out of their position, so you may need to try a couple times. Now you can tighten the bolts through the cutouts whilst holding the motor in place. Back the bolts off a little bit to keep them loose for now. Then, take the extruder and feed it onto the strut with the belt beneath and the 2 wheels on top. The filament tube should be on the top side, where the QR code from the motor mechanism faces down. Check it runs smoothly along the strut. If it does not, you can adjust it to run smoothly as we have done before in part 1. Next, fix the single tri-wheeled mechanism onto the strut with the 2 bolts, similar to how the motor was fastened. Then, back the bolts off a little bit to keep them loose for now. Take the bearing which fixes to the end of the strut where the belt will run around, slide it onto the strut as shown. This piece has the same clips we saw earlier. If you keep tightening them, they should eventually grab, but it may take a few turns. As we said before, they are pretty evil. Once they have caught, back them off a tiny amount so you can move the section slightly. Now, take the ends of the belt and clip them into either side of the extruder. You may have to give it a bit of force to get them close enough. Go back to the belt bearing mechanism that we left slightly loose earlier. By applying force in the direction shown, you can keep the belt taut. This is important for smooth motion across the strut. Keep the force applied, then tighten the screws to keep the belt taut. Finally, check the motion of the extruder across the strut. It should be smooth and the belt should not feel too loose anywhere along the strut. You have finished part 3 of constructing the Ender 3 Pro 3D printer. You can now move on to part 4, main assembly. Thanks for watching.